What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic I've come up with for the day. And there's a lot of bald discussion in the chat, as you can see. Don't ask me why. I didn't start that discussion. It was just all them. The people who are in the chat, it's all your fault that there's bald stuff on the screen right now. And I'm not going to demonstrate my level of baldness because that would require me embarrassing myself. So, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you all. Glad to be here on this sunny Friday. I guess it was sunny in Athens today. You don't hear me? Come on, man. Don't play around like that. I'm sure you hear me because I can see the bar moving in OBS. Okay. Maybe your YouTube is muted, alternate ved. So, let's say hello to the folks who are in the chats, the multiple chats that we have hooked up here. Let me get over to the... Yeah, you have me muted. Thanks, alternate vet. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your vote of support. Sunny, said Ashraz. Yeah, it was sunny in Athens. It was, you know, fairly warm today. You know, pretty good. Hello to Alice, to E-Beam, Waxy A Tape, Glenn, alternate ved, Morgan, Leonix, Nakotani, Eric. Let's see, Trev, Big Edie, From. Let's see, Peter, Yabo. I think that's it on the IRC side. Dave, nice to see you. Also on the YouTube side, if you're on the YouTube side, say hello in the chat. There's Ashraz, and Alex was here way earlier, but I don't think he's still around now. And hello to Jerry as well. Ashra says, the sun is a lie. I haven't seen it for too long. Well, you should probably move to Greece because it has been relatively sunny here. After the whole, you know, winter rain and wind swept through for about 3 or 4 days, everything's been good again, so. Nakotani says, yeah, I'm always busy Friday, and just 10 minutes ago found out that I need to leave in 30 minutes. Okay, well, it's what happens, you know. Life comes and disrupts the things that you plan to do with your day, and we just have to sort of deal with it. Hello to Einar and to Gun. Also, hello to Steve, to Roberto, and to Ed. Yes, thank you, Steve, for not having me muted. I appreciate that. Okay, so sorry, Ashraz. I have to say, I tried to get the Twitch bridge working again today, and it seems that they've been gradually changing things with how the Twitch IRC works, or at least the one thing I was dealing with today is how they've changed the way that you get the token, which I think is the same process, but the documentation is all different. Like I used to use a different process for like getting a refreshed token to access the IRC, and now they've changed everything, and it seems that they're pushing things toward using a different API and not IRC for writing chatbots. So I'm having to sort of readjust what I'm doing to get the Twitch chat back over into the stream overlay. So that's why it's still going to be just IRC on the chat overlay up here for now. And if you want to join the chat that shows up in that overlay, check out the pinned message in the YouTube chat. Ashraz has helpfully put that there, where to go chat in IRC, but you can just join irc.libra.chat and the System Crafters Live channel. And you can join up with that, and your text will be on the screen with everyone else's there. Hello to Arch Visions. So let's see what's in the news today. Big news that just came out a couple days ago is that Guile Hoot 0.6.0 has been released. So for those of you who haven't been paying attention to channel for like the last, I don't know, year probably by this point, Guile Hoot is a Scheme to WebAssembly compiler that is written in Guile Scheme. And it's one of the main projects of the Sprightly Institute, which I have been talking about multiple weeks in a row. And just a quick reminder, please donate to support Sprightly. Go check out the donation page on the website for that. But Guile Hoot is a really cool project because what it does is allow you to write Guile Scheme code and then compile it into a WebAssembly binary, let's say, to run in the browser. And it works across all three major browser engines. At least the latest versions of them. It works in Chromium, it works in Firefox, it also works in WebKit, which powers Safari. So it is now possible to write web applications in Guile Scheme and have it be compiled to WebAssembly and not just be some weird, Scheme compiled to JavaScript thing. So this is the latest release of Hoot. It seems like there's a lot of fundamental work going on in Hoot this time, and it all appears to be in the lead up to bringing sprightly goblins into the browser, because that's going to be a really big deal. That will enable distributed applications to be written from within the context of the browser, so that you could have a browser game, let's say, that's communicating to someone else with the game running in their browser and be able to do multiplayer stuff, or maybe communicate with the server somewhere, or many things like that. It's going to open up a lot of really interesting possibilities, and I'm really excited about Goblins itself. But for Goblins to work, there has to be a lot of extra things added to Guile Hoot, and I think that's what this release is focused on. So the highlights of the release is that they've got much improved weak hash table supports, which have a lot of useful functions, but I think that is probably one of the core things that gets used in Goblins for VATs and how sort of the persistence model or the state model works. I'm guessing. This is just sort of me opining about that. But weak hash tables are important because you need to have a way to refer to an object without preventing it from being garbage collected. So I think that's the reason why that was some work was spent on that. Also says Hoot now implements enough of Guile to compile nearly all of the Goblin source code, and I think that's going to be coming up as a thing quite soon. So we probably will hear more about that in the next couple of months. I don't know what the timeline is. I haven't been told. I'm just saying. So there'll be another blog post about that relatively soon. And also, as of December 9th of last year, WebKit now supports with WASM-GC and tail calls enabled by default. So basically, that's to say that you can run Guile Hoot applications on iOS and Safari in macOS, right? Let's see. What am I missing in the chat here? Hey, Christine, I see you. Soul-crushing punishment of Ashraz continues. We're not punishing Ashraz, See where it says, oh, the pixel art. I'm guessing not looking at the stream. We're about to get another release is why. Yes, so that's what I'm talking about. Basically, that the Goblins release is potentially imminent, but I'm not trying to say that I know when it is, because I'm just, sort of interpreting things I'm reading. Dave says, you'll hear about it real soon if I could finish something. That's some foreshadowing there. Maybe you'll hear about it while this stream is happening. I don't know. Ashraz has to suffer, says Left Pad. Well, Left Pad would say that. Okay, so check it out. There's a lot of stuff in here. One thing that I want to point out, which I think is really interesting, aside from the REPL that's here, is that the Hoot expander module has been added, which means that there actually is a syntax expander that runs in WebAssembly now, which means that eventually, not right now, but eventually, you will be able to evaluate syntax forms, or let's say syntax expanders in a running Hoot session. So you will be able to evaluate macros, basically, or syntaxes inside of a running Hoot session. That's at least what I'm interpreting from this. Really important stuff, because that will enable a full interactive live development workflow directly to the running WebAssembly program, rather than having to recompile and then reload the browser to do everything. So that's some pretty serious stuff, I think. A lot of work done by Andy in this release, which is great. And a lot of other stuff that's just like APIs being fleshed out so that Goblins can be implemented. A lot of other really useful stuff that you would need to write Guile applications. I'm not going to read through all this. I suggest you go read through it if you're interested in Hoot. So check that out. If you use GNU Guix, you have access to Hoot 0.6.0 already. You just have to update your channels to the latest commits in the Guix main channel and use Guile next, but you will actually be able to check that out. And I thought about doing that today, but the project that I had in mind didn't really pan out. I was going to try to like rewrite the stream integration, the UI that I have for OBS using Hoot, but it turns out that the packaging of OBS 31 with the OBS browser source is using like Chromium 117, and that's way too early. We need like 123 or something. So I'll have to try to work on that a little bit and get that set up later, but eventually we will get back to doing some Hoot hacking on one of the streams for sure. All right. Anything else I should mention about that, Christine and Dave? Anything that I'm missing there? All right, while I'm waiting on that, so the Guix user and contributor survey has finally come back. I've talked about this a few months back. There was a survey sent out by Steve George, also known as Futurile, who has a great blog about GNU Guix stuff, as well as he's one of the hosts, or maybe the main host of Guix Social. And if you haven't heard of that, this kind of like I don't know how often Guix Social happens, but it's a kind of like a live meeting, recorded live meeting where people get together and talk about Guix-related topics. Andrew Tropin was just on there recently talking about the latest developments in Guile IDE functionality with REs and RE. I also talked there last year sometime. Okay, I foreshadowed the future stuff with the expander, yes. So, anyway, point being, Steve very graciously put together a community survey to sort of take the temperature of how things are going in the Guix project and the Guix community, and a lot of really interesting information came back from that. Steve was posting some of the summary of this on Mastodon today, or Fediverse today, and I saw a little bit of that, but we're going to take a quick look at this post and see if we can glean anything interesting out of it. It's a reasonably decent length post, not too bad. Let's see. So just in case you're interested in what people in the Guix community are saying about Guix, let's just take a little look at this. So the percentage of people who participated in the survey were about half just users, about 31% were contributors, and then some number were previous users and previous contributors. Let's see. It appears that, Guix users are more on the intermediate to expert end of the spectrum, which makes sense because Guix is not really super beginner friendly. I mean, nobody's really surprised about that. How long have you been using Guix? I would say it's pretty evenly distributed between 1 and 5 years, let's say. So yeah, pretty good distribution there. A lot of people, a quarter of the people, have been using Guix for less than 1 year. And one thing you can say about that is that more people are actually trying Guix. You can say that 245 people have started using Guix and paid attention enough to the community to actually respond to the survey. So that's good to know. There's new people coming in. Let's see. Guix users generally have a lot of Linux experience. You kind of need to have some amount of Linux experience, in my opinion. Guix user base is growing. Similar distribution to users of Nix, which is interesting. Unfortunately, 9% of users are no longer using Guix but care enough to fill out the survey. So what can be done to help them come back? Probably you should, bake cookies. Maybe give $100 vouchers to ThinkGeek. I don't know. Does that store still operate, or is it been bought by some crazy conglomerate who is soulless? I don't know. I'm just totally riffing right now. I don't know anything. Trev says, it seemed to me like a lot of people are trying it for Scheme. That certainly could be the case. All right, adopting the Guix. Why were you initially interested in Guix? 82% says, excuse me, declarative configuration. And this is not 100% total here. This is, a multiple choice question, but you can say that 82% of people responding here said declarative configuration. 70% said reproducibility. 57% says reliability. And then a good mixture. Oh, Scheme, Guile, and Lisp are cool. This is pretty obvious stuff. What is the lowest one? Alternative architectures. GNU heard. Yeah, because it's not really fully there yet. As a tool for packaging my own software, it has 28%, which is kind of interesting. People added their own comments, things like development environments, free software, full source bootstrap. Yeah, for sure. Which aspect of Guix did you initially adopt? And 46% say as a graphical desktop environment through Guix system, and 36% say as a package manager on another distribution. So kind of interesting that more people have tried to adopt it as a graphical distro first, because that's probably the harder thing to do. But there is, a fair amount of difficulty just using it as a package manager, because you have to fight with the foreign distro and all the stuff that's installed there as well. So it's not necessarily all sunshine and daisies, as they say. Steve's saying he's going to find out how to bake cookies. Yes. Maybe you can, just buy some that are baked. I don't know. Adoption challenges. What's the highest one? It looks like shortage of examples of usage. Well, there's probably a lot of examples of usage out there. They're just not really well organized. Inexperience with Lisp syntax and or Guile scheme certainly makes sense. Differences between Guix's approach and other Linux distros. Yeah, it's definitely a mental model shift that has to happen to sort of become proficient in what's going on there. Shortage of how-to tutorials and videos. That's partly my fault too, because I haven't really gotten back to making more. But definitely, if anybody out there has an interest in making videos and you have experience with Guix, get out there and make some videos, write some tutorials, because people need that stuff to learn to become proficient actually using Guix, if we want the community to continue to grow and be successful. Let's see. Shortage of examples is a big challenge. Shortage of how-to tutorials. Let's see. Conceptual complexity, sure, definitely. Lack of drivers. Steve is saying, short of examples and how-tos is the biggest issue for new users. Lots of stuff in the manual, but people just want to get on with it. Yeah, well, the problem with the manual is very comprehensive, but it's very technical. And in typical manual fashion, it's not like a step-by-step tutorial. It's more of an organized collection of information about the various components and commands of Guix that kind of expects that you know where you're looking, or you know what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for yet, then it's almost meaningless. You would have to read through the entire thing to start gleaning things that you need from the manual. So definitely more cookbook style things, which there is a Guix cookbook, but it isn't like really super fleshed out, and also sort of end-to-end tutorials are needed. Picker says, will you take a look at EWW? Maybe sometime in the future. I don't know. Let's see. Hard to diagnose error messages. That's certainly a problem that I've helped people work through. It can be definitely hard to diagnose error messages. How much time am I spending here? Very poor support for full disk encryption. Well, I don't really agree with that. Are we talking about encrypting also the boot file system? Because other than that, it's fine. Let's see. Language ecosystems, it's challenging. Mac availability, there is someone working on that. Man. I think his name is Chad. I might be wrong. Someone is working on something called the Guix subsystem for Mac OS, or MSG, or something. Somebody tell me in the chat what it's called. There is a project that is for putting Guix on Mac OS, and there's some level of activity and success there, I think. How satisfied were you with your experience adopting Guix? 43% satisfied. Okay, that's pretty good. That's more than I would actually think. Dave says, someone is working on a port to Mac OS. Wow, yeah, there is, I can't remember what it's called. It's a 3-letter acronym. I think it's a play on WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, but it's like Mac OS subsystem for Guix or something. Uncle Roger says, Nakatani. I don't know what you're talking about there, buddy. Very dissatisfied, 22%. Okay. I can see that. I don't have any qualms with people being very dissatisfied. Which distro do you use Guix on? Other, which probably is Debian, because Debian is probably the easiest one. Then Ubuntu after that. Nix. Yeah, I could see maybe people would want to try that. Gentoo is interesting. Arch makes sense. Alpine, I would expect more people to start using Guix on Alpine because it's in the community repo. Or the community, I don't know what you call those, package channel. Steve says, lots of users complain that they have to put their passwords in twice. Well, you don't have to if you do the extra work. There is a way to do like a key file, an encrypted key file that allows you to unlock your encrypted volume only once. It's just extra work. But it is possible. Or at least it was possible at some point. I don't know if it got broken at some point. Bigger, eatier? Uh-huh. A lot of comments about users experimenting with Nix and Guix. I really don't know why you'd want to at that point. Like, why would you run Guix on Nix? Because Nix kind of like does what Guix does, but makes things a bit easier. Maybe if you're just experimenting because you want to switch to Guix in the end. Not sure. All right. So, why did you stop using Guix? We'll probably stop at this one because I don't want to spend too much time here. Complexity of maintenance is too high. Many commented that the overall experience of using Guix was too time-consuming and complex. Slow configuration feedback loop, inefficiency, and overall maintenance burden were all concerns. Certainly makes sense. The thing about complexity of maintenance is that it is complex at first until you finally get to a stable configuration state. And then it's super easy and you barely ever have to do anything. Except for respond to the occasional change or deprecation, which usually they do a pretty good job of letting you know about, and you don't have to really like change too much too fast. So I don't know. I think that some people just need to get past that initial learning curve and get their system set up in a way they like it. And then once they have it reproducible and ready to go, then the maintenance burden is quite low, in my opinion. I don't really do much to my Guix system anymore. Every now and then I'll kind of reorganize my configuration a little bit, but it's pretty much the same stuff. And I just keep updating the channels maybe every 3 or 4 weeks, and then update my system, and that's it. So just keep moving, keep moving. Learning curve too difficult? Certainly, it's difficult. I'm not going to disagree with that. Lack of drivers, it is a problem sometimes. Unavailable, well, sure, it's a problem in the main channel. If you got 9 Guix, is not. Trev says, I like how you paused it. I don't really do much with my Guix system anymore. I don't have to do much with it from a configuration standpoint because I just do the same stuff all the time. I mean, I'm using Sway and Emacs in a browser. That's it. I mean, there's really nothing else to do. What is there to do? Unavailable proprietary software, use Flatpak. CUDA. Yeah, stuff like specialized things like that are going to be way more difficult to deal with, for sure. Let's see, efficiency and resource usage. Yeah, it takes a while to run Guix pull and Guix system and stuff, but to me, not a big deal. Especially if you don't have to do it that often. Missing packages and services, sure. Out-of-date packages, sure. Quality and reliability, I don't know. An upgrade broke the system and crippled it from booting. Roll back to the previous generation in the grub menu. I really don't think that that's like a foundational pillar of Guix, is that if you break your system in an upgrade, you should be able to just go into the grub menu and go back to your previous generation and go fix it. So if that wasn't possible, then sure, that's a big issue, but I'm pretty sure that is not a common experience. Not to belittle the person who wrote that, but I think it's a lack of knowledge about how to deal with problems in Guix that caused that issue. Guix not fully supporting disk encryption. It does support disk encryption. Missing guides, sure. Free software as a constraint. It's not a constraint, okay? Guix is not constrained by the requirement that everything should be free software. Guix is actually an incredibly open system that lets you use software from any source that you want. It's just a matter of someone having gone and packaged it, sure. So I don't know, like, it's not really a constraint, okay? The thing that's a bigger constraint to Guix than the whole free software concept is the fact that Guix is a difficult system to package software for or to run off-the-shelf software on because of the way that the system is laid out compared to a normal Linux, what do they call it, Linux file system hierarchy, the typical like organization that you have of a Linux system, plus the way that the the system libraries and stuff are set up. So that's the bigger issue. It's hard to package software, and it can be hard to package proprietary software because a lot of it has to be patched to work. So anyway, I digress. Not enough GNU. Not sufficiently supportive of GNU and or Richard Stallman. Well, that's not a software issue. I can't do anything about that. Language ecosystem issues. Yeah, well, it's hard to package Rust things and things for other languages. It is what it is. And it's not easy to make that better. I mean, things can get better, but it's still difficult just because of the way that, Guix needs to sort of be able to compile everything from scratch to bootstrap. Nix is more modern or practical. Practical, sure. Modern, I don't really know why they would consider it to be more modern. I would say they're probably on par as far as functionality is concerned. Old-fashioned communications, people don't like mailing lists. Unavailable on Mac OS. Incompatibility with hosting Linux distro. It's not that it's incompatible, it's just like a different model, and you got to be careful about the rough edges when the environment variables of the host system are throwing in library paths or load paths or module paths into the mix with your Guix stuff as well. Then you're going to get conflicts and things will crash. So it's almost better to try to run things out of a Guix shell container or a Guix container than it is to try to run things like directly in the system. So just keep that in mind. Random tip with using Guix on a foreign distro, try to isolate anything that you're running in Guix to within the sort of Guix environment without it being polluted by the outside system as much as possible. Then you will not run into as much problems with that. But it does require a little bit of knowledge, I think. Poor contributor experience? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I can say is that it will take a long time sometimes for patches to get reviewed. However, go to the Guix chat room and Libre chat and just ping people and say, hey, I've got a patch for review. And then maybe they'll take a look at it because there's so many and there's not enough maintainers available to review everything that you kind of have to use an alternative strategy for getting attention to your patch to get it in. It's just the way it is. It's Guix has the blessing and the curse of being used enough by enough people that they have a lot of contributions for new packages and package updates and like new services being added to this code. It puts quite a large burden on the maintainers to be able to review all of that and try to get merged in because they want to, keep a certain level of quality, but because the project has matured, it's over 10 years old. It's like, what, 12 years old now, I think? Anyway, Dave says, I think Guix is seriously considering switching to Forgeo, which would be a huge for contributor workflow, self-hosted or on Codeberg, says Peter. Not sure, says Dave. Well, what I heard on Fediverse is that Ludovic was talking about how there's a group that's using Guix for Science. I don't know if it's the HPC group or another group, like Geek Science Group. They started using Codeberg for their repositories, and they've had a positive experience with it. So I think the idea is that maybe some things could be done on Codeberg. I mentioned to Ludo on Fediverse, Guix is the kind of project that could probably benefit from self-hosting Forgeo, but I think he doesn't necessarily want to be in the business of maintaining yet another service for the community because it's another, point of failure. You have to have people, staff to keep it online and to understand how to fix issues. So I think it's more likely that they'll end up on something like Codeberg, but it would be nice to see Guix be on a GitForge that is easier for people to contribute on. It will make the process a lot easier. All right, let me check the chat. How important is Guix in your computing environment? Let's see. 23% says essential. 21% says moderately important, with everything else sort of going somewhere in between. I mean, I would say in my life it's quite essential just because of the fact that that's how I use my computer, and I have for 5 years. It's different for other people, I guess. All right. Let me scroll back. Wax CA Tape says, I personally went from Nix to Guix for Scheme. Yes. Ashra says, the thing I was looking for earlier is the macOS subsystem for Guix. Last commit was 7 months ago. Thank you, Ashraz. Ashra is clarifying that Trev liked the pause that I don't really do much. Yes, thank you very much for pointing out my tendency to procrastinate. Dave says, yeah, totally. Borking my system is a thing of the past with Guix. Me too. Peter says, other than installing Windows, I cannot remember when I completely borked a system. Yeah. Can't think of one. Tamwile in the Twitch says, I'm not a Guix user. Do you have to compile every package yourself, or some binary packages are also available? There are binary substitute packages for almost, well, pretty much everything in the main Guix repos, and also there are packages for the non-Guix repository as well. So you will have precompiled binaries available to you for the main x86-64 architecture, and maybe some others. I'm not sure which other ones have those. Benoit says, my main outcome not stated is that most likely 9% of the users who left Guix represent probably more users than the current Guix users. Yeah, well, probably there's a lot who are not actually responding to the survey. Like, why would you go back and respond to a survey for a distro you stopped using like 3 years ago? Probably you wouldn't. So we don't get that data, but that's okay. Peter says, Forgeo is a really nice platform for a code forge. I like it. I think it's great. Benoit says to Trev, I'm not anti-Guix. I actually spent some time answering the survey. Yes, Benoit is not anti-Guix. I think Benoit just wants to get on with his life and, have his computer work the way that he intends it to and not have to fiddle around with it too much, which I completely can relate to. I'm just a bit more of a masochist, and I can put up with trouble. So, well, I don't mean that I could put up with trouble in a way that other people can't. Maybe what I'm saying is I'm resigned to my fate as a Guix user. And I just accept things as they are. I just kind of go with it. Peter says, just run a local AI model if you need to use your PC for extra warmth. Well, sure. Nashra says, but where's the fun when you can't use your PC as a heater in winter? Yeah. All right. So, what time is it? Okay. 5 more minutes, maybe. Some thoughts, big takeaways. Interest in declarative configuration, reproducibility, along with Scheme, Guile, and Lisp are bringing in lots of new users. Around 50% have been using Guix for less than 2 years. Guix users are knowledgeable Linux users who are comfortable being hands-on with their system. Sure, you would have to be. Around 50% of users adopt Guix as a GNU Linux distribution, 36% as a hosted package manager. Survey produced great feedback from current and previous users. Around 67% of users were satisfied with their initial adoption experience, and Guix is essential or important for over a third of users. And there's going to be another post coming that covers more of the survey, which parts of Guix are most used, what sorts of deployments are being used, architectures and drivers details, and how users are contributing to the project financially. I'm glad that Steve decided to break this up into multiple posts because there's a lot of stuff in that survey. So it's good to kind of like get it a piece at a time to digest the learnings from all that. Imfrom says, absolutely hilarious relationship to an OS. Well, I like Guix. And some of you know I have been trying other distributions over the last 2 years, and I keep coming back to Guix. It's not Stockholm Syndrome, I promise. It's actually because Guix gives me things that I don't get elsewhere. Sure, you could say, oh, you'll get the same things in Nix. Well, I won't get the right scheme in Nix. So it's the perfect combination of factors for me. It doesn't have to be for everybody. And I know a lot of people have sort of tried and given up on Guix in the last year or two, but maybe things will change. Maybe, as time goes on, the situation will improve and more people will get to enjoy Guix as I do and not feel the crushing doom of I'm just trying to find the most poetic and ridiculous way to say this, and I'm failing now because I saw Ben Watt's comment saying that sometimes I feel Guix is abusing David Will. Nah, it's not like that. Not like that. It's all good. I'm happy. Okay, I'm happy enough. Let's say. Cool. So that's the user and contributor survey results. At least the first part of that. The other thing I forgot to mention here is that I put out summary video number 2 of the Crafter Hours streams. Let me go to YouTube System Crafters. So it's only an 11-minute video. I'm curious to hear what people think about it, because I don't really know if these videos are useful to people as kind of a way to keep track of the status of this project that we're working on. If you haven't sort of seen what's been going on the channel recently, a couple weeks ago I started doing 2 additional streams per week in the mornings, my time. Not around this time, but earlier in the day, where we do live coding, and we're working on a project to build a website from scratch in Guile Scheme right now called emaxpackages.com. That domain, I own the domain. There's nothing there yet, so don't be disappointed when you can't go to it. But we're building a site from scratch, and we're making pretty good progress on it. But I've been cutting up summary videos the last 2 weeks to sort of discuss the progress we're making in the project and kind of give you an insight into the development process. So give that video a look. Let me know what you think, either in the comments or let me know directly somehow. Also, if you want to, there's the live stream recordings that you can watch. I think I'm getting the impression that more people are actually going and watching the live stream recordings than they're watching the summary videos. So I don't know. Just let me know what you think. I'm curious to know what you think about whether the summary videos are necessary or if you just like watching 2.5 to 3 hour live stream recordings. I'm always surprised at the results on these things. But yeah, we're still having fun with that, and we'll be back on Monday at 7:30 a.m. UTC to continue on the project. So be there or be square or circular. I don't know. Whatever you think. So today, what we want to do is experiment with a community project called Gubar or Gubar. Maybe we should call it Gubar because Gubar sounds funny. And I think that's the reason why Trev named it that, because it does sound funny. And I can appreciate that. It's a good joke. But Gubar is a program that provides the information necessary for a sway bar. So if you're using the Sway desktop environment or window manager, I guess you could call it, there is a status bar, an optional status bar. You can kind of see it here at the top. I should probably make it not auto hide. Let me go and try to see if I can just change that real quick. .config, sway config, hide. Ooh, it looks like I got some merge conflicts in here. That's real cool. What did I do? I don't even know which one is the right one. Let's just do this. I will also put on keycast tab bar mode. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna reload really quick. So sway bar is this bar up at the top. It's a little bit difficult to see at the moment, probably because of the font size. Actually, let's see if I can change that to mono to 16. This is gonna be horrible, but maybe we'll make it easier. Okay, there you go. You can actually see it now. It's this bar at the top of the screen. And by default, it has its own set of blocks that can be displayed to show information. Like, let's say over here on the left side, there is the workspace switchers, so you can see what's in the various workspaces. On the right side, there's usually like a clock, some date, time information. You can also add other stuff there, whatever you want, really. But the point is that this bar is actually quite customizable in that you can run your own program to feed status information into the bar. And our community member Trev, a member of the System Crafters community, Trev, has decided, or had decided maybe 6 months ago, to write a sway bar implementation or status bar implementation in Guile Scheme. And he's worked on it for a while. He got it to a point where it was usable for him, and all is good. And I think recently glenneth decided to pick it up and start using it, and then glenneth started to make some improvements and tweaks and came up with sort of a development plan for continuing to move the project forward. So today what I want to do is actually try out this project. Just to point out up front, this is a community project. It's not necessarily like battle tested and ready for everybody to just go drop into their configuration right now. This is more of a way to look at something that the community has built, try it out, see how it sort of works in a real configuration, start looking into the code to understand how it's written, because I think there's some pretty interesting stuff in there. And then also talk about how the community can get involved to help Trev and Glenn to continue working on the project and maybe turn it into something that people might want to use in a scheme-based desktop environment configuration, okay? LeftPad says, get your clip button ready. We're going to see the stream break. The good news is that I have a 2 computer setup again. We're not going to have these kind of weird stream crashes anymore. At least I don't want to tempt the gods to make them crash my stream. But at least the machine that we're testing things on is not the one that's driving the stream. So we're a little bit safe in that regard, okay? LeftPad says you will manage somehow anyway. Well, the more likely thing is my computer will run out of battery. Because for some reason, Framework 13 laptop, sometimes under heavy CPU load, can the battery can still drain while it's being charged. It's slower, but it can still drain. Okay. Let me scroll up a little bit and see what's in here. In the chat, I mean. Theo Peckley says, while Guix is cool, what I really want is a new modern OS. I really miss Windows XP, Vista, and 7. You mean like feeling like you're getting a completely new operating system and not just the same old stuff? Yeah, I can kind of understand what you're saying. I mean, Guix kind of is that to me. Because it is not like the stuff that came before. And especially the more that you whittle down the stuff that you use for putting together your own workflow and environment, the more it feels like a modern system, because you don't have all the garbage that is included with normal modern systems, like all the adware and, you know, flashy, you know, startup screens and all the, you know, the start menu, the application launchers, all the garbage. I'm calling it garbage because it really doesn't give you any value other than just being slick. You know, all I want is just like a little thing that pops up and can, you know, give me the list of apps to run and just have everything else be an Emacs. So anyway, I feel like that's more futuristic than, you know, Windows 12, 13, whatever, or the newest Mac OS. Gormless Energy says wax CA tape. Okay. Alternate Vet says S merge mode. Yes, I normally try to use S merge mode, but in that case, I just want to delete something. A community Trev. A community Trevor. I did say that. Hello to Minas Mazar. Minas Mazar says, can I use Xmodmap RC to remap keyboard key codes even on X Wayland, or do I have to refine another config file? Wayland compositors normally have their own way to do remappings. In fact, you can see in the sway config, I have something here for, it's like XKB configurations. Here I'm swapping, I'm turning caps lock into control. So there's a way to do the same kind of thing just in your compositor configuration. There may be separate programs for that also, but I haven't used them. Alternate Vet says, yeah, Guix gives you nothing. That's modern. Nathan says, did David say he has a framework now? AMD? Yes, I have a framework 13 with the AMD Ryzen chipset. 8 cores and 96 gigabytes of RAM. Yes, I said that right. 96 gigabytes of RAM. It's excellent in many ways. There are some ways that also that's not so excellent, but for the most part, it's excellent. Ashra says, if I understand correctly, the framework is the stream encoder. Yes, that's right. The framework computer is the one that is pushing the stream to the internet. All right. So the place to find Gubar, or Gubar, however you want to say it, there's 2 repos right now where the work has been done and it is being done. The first one is Trev's original repo at github.com/trevrj/Gubar. Ashra says 96 gigabytes of RAM. You can open 3 tabs in Chrome and a single project in VS Code. That's right. I can have a couple of Electron instances going at the same time. And things haven't really been updated here so recently, I think. Trev added a little bit more documentation, which is good. But Glenn has added some stuff in his own fork of the project. If I go to the forks list, then you'll see that there's the glenneth 1/Gubar repo, which has some extra things in it. I don't know why that just popped up. So Load it. There you go. So there's some more commits in here, and Glenn's added some other files that have some ideas for things to do in the future. So we might look over those as well in a little while. So I might start with what Glenn has been working on because he added some extra stuff. And if we have trouble with that, then we'll drop back to what Trev had written a few months back. Yabo says 640 KB should be enough for everyone. Yes, it should be, but it wasn't. Okay, so let's clone the repository first of all. If I go into, let's see, should I do this as an eShell? eShell. All right, so projects, code. I haven't made a stream or video on framework yet. I have written one for the most part, excuse me, for the most part, but I have not actually recorded it yet because I kind of wanted to take a little bit more time and get more familiar with the downsides, let's say, because at the beginning it was all amazing. And over time you start to understand sort of what the limitations are of a piece of hardware that you get, which there aren't that many. It's still pretty great. I'm still very happy with it, but you know, there's stuff. All right, so Gubar. Hello, CD Gubar. There we go. All right, so the docs say that I should use Guix shell to run Gubar main. Now, the thing is, like, I don't know if this is how I should actually put it. Okay, interesting. Trev says, if the computer dies, it's now Glenneth's fault. Nice, okay. Config sway gubar.sh. Oh, we're making a script called this. Cool. That's fine. I got no problem with that. It will just make sway startup take longer in some cases, maybe. So here's what we'll do. We'll do what the docs say, okay? .config sway gubar.sh. Okay, and then I'm going to go and change this path to be the path to the repo that I just pulled down. So projects, code, Gubar. And that should be good. Shell Guile, yep. And what else? We need to put this as a status command in our sway config, okay? I'm gonna run it myself first as a shell script before I actually put it into sway and reload to use it, because otherwise we're gonna end up with trouble, probably. So I'll take my status command out and I'll replace it with this one. I also need to go into the terminal and chmod +x .config sway gubar. All right, there's that. Now I want to run that first. So .config sway gubar.sh. Let's see what it does. It might take a little while for it to get everything pulled down and built. All right, so we're getting information. It looks like the stuff would be working. Now, let me check this geeks.scm file. I want to take a look at that real quick. So projects code. Whoa, okay, I got to fix my completions. Projects code Gubar geeks.scm. Okay, so we got a package definition here, but it is for the local package code. That's good. So we know that we're at least getting the latest stuff. So let's try it. I'm going to reload my sway configuration, and I do see some information showing up here. It actually looks quite nice, and it does seem to be getting updated every second. The time is being updated. It's giving me the time zone and everything else. Cool. So bravo, kudos to Trev and Glenneth for having this thing work immediately whenever I tried it, and me not sit here and cry because I didn't try it before the stream and never was able to know whether it worked or not. Great. Now, I'm not sure what these are. Are these like workspace indicators? Now that I've actually got it running, I'll have to go take a look at the documentation. You know, the things that you usually need for this sort of work. So let's go to the README. And I don't think we have the latest stuff from Trev's fork here, so maybe we'll have to go look at that one as well. Did we merge that over? Not yet. Okay. Integrating with swaybar configuration. Gubar will look for a configuration file in config/gubar/config.scm before falling back to the default config, which is just the system time. Okay. Yeah, Glenn added the workspace stuff. Yeah, I saw that. That's great. Okay, so there's a basic API for defining these Gu blocks, which are the blocks that you would see in the status bar, which is cool. Let's see. And there are keyword parameters for configuring a Gu block. So block is the initial block represented as a list, which is probably the text. We'll have to see what that looks like in practice. Interval, time in seconds in which this block updates. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is relevant in a moment. Procedure, the main procedure that will be run after interval receives a something and returns a block record. Okay, receives a block and returns a block. So it sort of transforms the block, it sounds like. Click handler is a procedure that is run when the block is clicked. The block must have its name field set, okay? And the signal, sigr time in offset that this block will be listening to and refresh on can be triggered by sending a signal to the Guile process using Gubar, pkill, blah, 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 blah. Makes sense. All right. So there's some built-in blocks. There's one for the battery status, which is great. There's one for date time. There's one that says label, which I think just lets you put in arbitrary text. Network manager Wi-Fi, which is kind of cool. It'd be nice to have that in my configuration. Hello to T. Also, hello to Forest Hobo, True New, and whomever else I missed over on the YouTube side. Pipewire volume, that's great. I'm using Pipewire, so good. And then the XKB layout to, if you want to switch inputs. Actually, I need that because I haven't really done that yet. And I need to be having some Greek keyboard support in here somewhere because sometimes I have to type Greek characters, unfortunately. It's just a, consequence of living in a foreign country. So, example configuration. We probably want this. I'm going to go grab this config and drop it where I'm supposed to have it. That is under config/gubar/config.scm. So, config/gubar. Yeah, okay, it doesn't exist yet. Sure, whatever. Config.scm. Save it, create the folder, yes. All right. Now, if I restart my sway config, hopefully it will refresh that and then we'll see the new configuration show up. Boom, there we go. So we do have date and time. We're missing some characters that would make these icons show up correctly. I'm guessing we need a different font for that to work. But it seems that we have, well, I don't know which one this one is 100%. Maybe that's battery, 99. Not sure which one 99 is unless it's a volume level. You can type Greek characters by using set input method. Yes, only in Emacs, not in your desktop environment. I'm clicking these, they don't do anything, which probably is, I shouldn't click them without really knowing what they're supposed to do, because that would be a total problem. I'm clicking some text and it actually changes color. That's cool. Nice. Peter says that config language looks really clean. Yeah, it's definitely clean whenever you wrap the Gu block configuration with a procedure that just gives you like the parameters needed for adding that stuff in. That's one of the nice things about Scheme is you just have procedures that can be called, I guess Lisp in general, but still, in this case, it's Scheme. It looks like a configuration file basically, but you are doing some imports here to import things. Ashra says, why would you leave Emacs? Because I got to go to some stupid website to like pay my taxes or something. Glenn says they aren't interactive yet. I'm sure that won't be a problem. In fact, if it's a Guile program, then you could potentially show a graphical window to interact with the things that are happening in those. So there's a lot that can be done, I think. Altered Vet says, I need nerd fonts. Probably I do need nerd fonts. Trev says the built-in modules are lacking a lot of flexible configuration. Well, oh, and battery nerd icons, true. So I think I needed nerd icons. Does Guix have that? Guix packages by name. Come on. Nerd icons. Well, it's Emacs nerd icons. Where does it pull that in from? Yeah, probably just downloads it on demand. Nerd font. Nerd. Nope. But nerd fonts symbols only. So it looks like that needs to be pulled down separately. Maybe there could be a package made for nerd fonts. So, looking good so far. I mean, we got it pulled up here. Let's see what would be interesting to do. That here we've got the time format, which, okay, sure, that's just a normal time format. It's nothing really that special. Network manager Wi-Fi. Waxy A-Tape says, just type the Greek strings in Emacs, export to PDF, print it out, scan the paper on a Win 11 machine, copy the text into a box of choice. You know, it does sound like a workable solution to this problem. I appreciate the suggestion. I think I'll try that. Maybe we'll have another stream where I actually tried to pay my taxes by printing out all of my Greek text and then scanning it in and praying that it works. You're missing facts somewhere in there, says Ashraz. Maybe. All right, so we have XKB layout that comes after volume pipewire. Okay, so date time, network manager Wi-Fi, volume pipewire. XKB layout is supposed to be in here somewhere, but I don't actually see it. I don't know if it's because these aren't legitimate language configurations. Then battery, then some text. Boo. There's no way to really interactively reload this stuff yet, which would be kind of nice. It would be nice if, well, I guess you could do it though. But trying to think of the way to accomplish that. So obviously what we're seeing here, the configuration file is evaluated and the last value that gets returned when evaluating this file is used, and it's expected to be a list of these block configurations. That's why you see this list here. So to make this live reloadable, you would need to also support a procedure being returned. And that procedure, if it calls another procedure that could be dynamically reloaded using a REPL, then you would have the ability to dynamically update or change the block configuration while the bar is running, I think. But the blocks themselves that are currently running would have to be replaced, I think, because or maybe there would need to be like some special procedure that you could call that could wipe the current blocks and replace them. Anyway, there would need to be some affordance for live reloading or live development of blocks, I believe. But I mean, that's not really 100% needed. It would be nice for sure. But at least for now, you have to reload the program to do that, which is fine. No big deal. Okay. So we could get rid of the label for now. Let's just get that label out. I'll reload the program, and then we can see now that it is, yeah, the text is out, which is good. What other blocks did it say that it had? Is there anything that we can kind of learn from? Alias pairs, get inputs together info, alias pairs used for mapping the layout index to an alias to be displayed. What? Oh, is this something different? It's not what I think it is. Let me go into my eShell. I'm gonna run this sway message command here. Why am I not seeing? Okay. Is this for something different? Languages. Okay, sure. Lang? No, guess not. All right. Alternate Ved asked in the chat, asked Trev, did you base the design of Gubar on anything else? Good question. All right. Network manager, Wi-Fi, label, date, time, battery. Okay, so let's just go look at the code, right? I think there's a couple things we want to look at in the code. I think we should start by looking at the blocks themselves first to get a sense for how they operate. And then we can look at the internal design to understand better how it works. Then, you know, we'll be able to maybe have a foundation for suggesting how people can contribute to the project. So first of all, the actual block configuration would be at the bottom here. And it is a procedure that is called battery, which we saw in the configuration. If you go back to config here, it's the battery procedure that's being called here. It's coming from the Gubar blocks battery module. And in battery, it has a few keyword parameters that are settable by default. And let's see, nerd fonts. Let me turn this to false. I wonder if that changes the output any. Okay, it says charged. Cool. So it says creates a battery monitor block, and it gives information about the arguments. And then, we are detecting the paths of power supplies, which is another procedure that's defined in here somewhere. So we're doing some work to sort of detect the system devices that give the battery status, so we can get the battery charge level, et cetera, et cetera. And then doing a lot of processing on the output. Let's see, are we running anything here? So base path, string append, base path. Okay, we're reading the file. And then for each supply, check its type. So we're doing some extra processing to sort of determine which one is the battery. And then, yeah, we're detecting the AC adapters. And we're, you know, changing the strings based on whether we find batteries or AC adapters. Okay, that's good. So once we have detected paths, then we can format. Okay, it looks like we're logging. Is this logging information? And then let's see, battery path card, detected paths. Okay, so we're using a default battery path. What is SCM? It's scheme. And then AC, we're basically trying to boil it down to the AC path. We have our list of icons for the different charge states probably. And then we return a GUblock record instance, or at least a GUblock instance. We're about to look at the GUblock definition in a moment. But the block definition here is, it has a name of battery, and the full text is not available, probably because that's the text that gets displayed when it starts up. And then the interval for updating is 3. I'm guessing that's 3 seconds. And then it has a procedure which accepts a block, which is probably this block information here. I'm guessing that is just the A list, because you want to store state for the block in the A list, which I kind of agree with. That makes sense. Then Glenn says that logging was for me when I couldn't get it to work properly. Cool, makes sense. Ashra says Gubar, coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. I'm pretty sure that was on purpose. Then we read the proc file for the path of the battery, and we read the AC status string, and then eventually we format a string. Then we call set block full text on the block, which we'll have to go take a look at. Holy moly, so that's how files get their extensions. Someone's joking around, I think. I'm not sure who that is in there. All right, set block full text on the block. I mean, that's probably just setting this up in the A list, right? Yabo says, what's the joke with Gubar? Just English slang or something? Yeah, it's just like, Gubar is kind of like an idiot. Or there's other things that Gubar relates to, but it's just kind of a silly word, let's just say. It's just a silly word. Set block urgent if battery level is less than 10. Okay, that's interesting. So there's some extra stuff in there. Is there a documentation on the meaning of the fields inside of a block? Wax CA Tape tells Yabo that Gubar is just a silly little guy in English. Yeah, it's a silly person, let's say. Let's see. For modules that require signals, you can use Gubar to cause them to be updated? Is that what's happening? Admiral Gubar says, I'm not trying to be silly for once. Okay, well, I am. That's what I usually do. Okay, you can put the full stuff in here. Cool, that's fine. Anyway, we'll have to take a look at what the internal model is for Gubar blocks in a moment. All right, so set block full text, battery error, cool, good. So pretty simple. I think what it eventually comes down to is that you need to define a Gu block. You give it some initial information for the block state A list. You give it an interval, and you give it a procedure to execute. And your procedure takes the current state of the A list does some stuff, and then modifies that A list and returns a new new A list, let's say, or an updated A list, which is good because it's a functional style in this case. You're taking in the previous state, you're doing some manipulation to the previous state to produce a new state, and you're returning the new state. So that's nice. I like that. That's a good design. Also, you're using some predefined functions for setting certain details in that A list, but I'm guessing you could probably, just, well, actually, let me not make assumptions. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the A list is just a way to initialize the values, and then you actually have to use the record information instead. Trev says the signal stuff is an i3 swaybar protocol thing that all other bar generators do. Okay, cool. Good to know. All right, so let's take a look at another one. How about the network manager one? I'm kind of curious about that. So the definition for this one is a simple lambda that just says set block full text. It updates every 10 seconds, calls get Wi-Fi status, uses the match expression. All right, Trev. Uses the match expression to extract the SSID and the signal level if there is any, and if there is, it formats that information and puts it in there. Otherwise, it just gives you a particular icon. I'm guessing it should have given me some status here, but maybe it didn't. And then get Wi-Fi status. It opens up the NMCLI. It runs NMCLI, gets the output of the program, and parses it. Parse line is here. Splits the string on colons. Jerry says, Urban Dictionary defined Gubar as a term of affection for a lovable, silly, lighthearted person. That sounds good. That's a nice way to put it, I think. Okay, so once we have the information from the parsed line, we... close pipe. We probably should do some hygiene on these. Like, some of this stuff can be done with like a with open input pipe or with open input file or things of that nature, so that it automatically manages closing the port after the fact. But then maybe get line is being used also in certain cases. So I don't know, like maybe it could be improved a little bit, but it's fine. So yeah, it just basically produces a list in the end, or an empty list, let's say, or false. A list or false, depending on whether the connection is available or not. And then this match is what determines how it gets displayed in the end. All right? Cool. So that one's pretty simple. We're just calling NMCLI, and we are just taking the information out of that and then turning it into status information. Pretty simple. I like that. Next, let's see. Volume pipe wire. A very similar thing, I think, in that it just calls command line programs to get the output. Maybe some of these aren't running because I don't have them on the command line. Don't know. I don't know if I have NMCLI installed by default. NMCLI, NMCLI, PACTL. All right, okay, both of those are installed. That's good. So this one is done only on signals. So it seems like the logic here is that you need to follow the information that's presented in the documentation for signals, so that whenever you hit your volume keys, locked and release, set sync volume, release. After you release the button, it actually needs to send a signal to Gubar to get it to update its display. And that's the reason why this says signal here, is because it's waiting for a signal to know when to update. So it doesn't try to call PACTL all the time. It only calls PACTL on a signal. So it's a lot faster that way. So only when you change your volume using the buttons that are bound in Sway does it actually update that interface, which is fine. I like that. And the procedure also is very simple here. What else? I'm saving workspaces for later. System resources. What is this? It's like helper stuff. Oh, it has a GPU monitor. That isn't mentioned in the docs, but maybe that's kind of interesting to put in. I'm not using NVIDIA. I would like to have a CPU temp monitor somewhere. That'd be nice. CPU temp. Oh, maybe it's here. Disk monitor, memory monitor. Cool. So these are not documented. We should put those in and check them out though. CPU monitor. Oh, it has temp too. Excellent. So this is in system resources. If I go back to my config.scm, I can add that. So Gubar blocks system resources. Thanks, Glenn. And I'm going to drop some of these in here. So I'm going to put in, what was it? CPU monitor. Mem monitor. What other things are exported? Disk monitor. All right, disk monitor. And then I'm going to reload the config and see if it runs. Whoa, I managed to start a new Emacs session in Foot, which is great. Unbound variable mem monitor. What did I do wrong there? Memory monitor. Okay, my mistake. Here we go. Reload again. Ah, nice. So, all right, CPU 13%, 20% Celsius. Sorry, 20 degrees Celsius. Memory 12%, disk 63%. Nice. All right, that's pretty good. I mean, we got some status information about the machine, and since you have the code for this, if you wanted to do something custom that is better for your system, then you can go and take a look at what's in here. I think that some of these things like read proc file and these safe read line, safe string number, these things should be in a utils library for Gubar, which can be used by other block implementations since they're all going to end up importing this module anyway. So that would enable other people to really quickly write new blocks. So that's something definitely to consider. And if you're a person who's interested in contributing to the project, that might be an easy way you can get installed, is to make like a util module. Is there one already? Utils? No. You can make a module like that and move some of these helper functions in there so that other people can more easily write their own blocks. Glenn says the colors change as the temps increase too. Yeah, that's nice. Let's see. Set block color. So there's set block full text, set block color. Cool. We can see how that happens. Set block, what else? There's full text, there's urgent. Yeah, that's all that I'm really seeing for now. So that's nice, all right. Label is very simple. Don't really need much on that one. DTG says, how is process isolation in Gubar? I'm using swaybar, which I like, but it seems to crash often. We'll talk about that in a minute. It may not be perfect, but I think that there is something for that. All right. Oh, lambda key args. What's going on there? Oh, it's a catch. Got it. So there is some error checking in here. So that is kind of useful in some of these blocks so that your bar doesn't crash entirely. Date time, super simple. Really nothing that special there. It's just calling string f time, which is part of the Guile library, to format the time string. And lastly, the workspaces one that Glenn has been adding. So what does this do? Workspaces, names, interval 1, names. Creating workspace block with names. So I'm guessing that allows you to do a mapping between workspace numbers to names, I assume. So let me just try that real quick. I'm gonna drop it into config. This is in which module? This is Gubar blocks workspaces, config. And then down here, actually at the front, let's say. Glenn, is there some kind of like right align stuff that you had added? I feel like you mentioned that somewhere. Maybe it's in the docs and I haven't looked at it yet. Workspaces, is that what it's called? Let's see. Workspaces. Names. Chat. Dev. Browser. And what else? Name, color, align. Okay, there's an align. Align left, default alignment. Okay. So I'm just going to reload this and see what it does. Oops. Here we go. Unexpected end of file. So check parens. Not there. Not there. Huh. There it is. Okay. Glenn is saying that I need to add something to the Gubar.scm file. Let me just check what this is. Okay, so it needs to be an A list, it seems. So we could say 0 chat, 1 dev, and 2 browser. Another unexpected end of file. Oh, yeah, I did that on purpose. Okay. So that does work. Chat, dev, browser. And it's updating only about a second after. Interval is interval. We can configure the interval as 1 second by default. Probably need to do something to change that. Interval 5, min width 550. So you need to have like a min width. I'm going to make that lower. Min width 200. I don't know. I think that's what's going to do the alignment. How about 500? I don't know. Yeah, okay, there you go. It starts pushing it over to the side. Oh, and Glenn is also adding an invisible separator in between, so that makes sense. It's not really meant for this, I think. Sorry, the sway bar design is not really meant for you to replace its own workspace indicators, so that's kind of like an extra thing that someone could do if they wanted to. But yeah, there you go. Glenn says, I can't figure out how to make the alignment dynamic. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy to do that. Okie dokie. So, now that we've seen all of the sort of built-in blocks, I think it's time to go look at the internal design. So if we were to go look at the, let's see. So there's GuBlock and there's Sway Protocol. Let's go to GuBlock. All right, so first of all, we are defining a record type called GuBlock. So make GuBlock block, interval, procedure, click handler, signal. So those are sort of the main things that we've noticed initially. And then the swaybar protocol body object, that may be that A list we were looking at before. So set GuBlock block. Interval, procedure, click handler, signal. Okay. So now the block information, make GuBlock scheme to block. All right. What is going on in that procedure? I don't even know where that is. Oh, it must be in the swaybar protocol module. So we'll go to that in a minute. So GuBlock key. Got it. Do procedure. Okay, so GuBlock run. When is that getting called? It must be getting called somewhere else. Is there like okay, there's Gubar.scm, run Gubar, then there's main. All right, so the thing I have not mentioned up until now is that Gubar is it's an example of a program written using Guile fibers. And if you saw the video that I posted last week sometime, Guile fibers is a library for Scheme that provides a concurrency model similar to what you would see in languages like Go or concurrent ML, and anything else that has, or even Clojure, anything that has a CPS or a, what is it? CPS, concurrent. What is it? No. Go channels is CSP. Communicating sequential processes. Okay, CSP, all right? So basically, it's a model where you have interleaved lines of execution. It's not fully parallel. They're not running at the same time, but they are being interleaved, and one line of execution is being yielded, and then another can go run. So it's kind of it's like a library that manages this kind of concurrent operation. The point is that thank you to DTG, is communicating sequential processes. The point is that you can define your Gubar blocks as sort of independent units of computation and let fibers manage the scheduling of when to call those blocks. So you don't have to have individual, Tom Guile says, sounds like coroutines. Yes, it's a lot like coroutines. You don't have to set up timers yourself for the intervals for things. You can actually just let fibers take care of running the block procedure functions on the interval that's specified. So fibers kind of takes care of the heavy lifting on orchestrating the updating of blocks, which is cool. So the main procedure that gets executed inside of Gubar just calls run fibers, which is part of the fibers library, and it calls this run Gubar function. It doesn't take any parameters. It creates a channel, and then it loads a configuration file to get all the blocks. So it loads that scheme file, that config.scm file. That file returns a list of block record types, and then that gets loaded into this GuBlocks list. Now, we initialize and start mods with channel. So for each GuBlock, we spawn a fiber. So that's an independent concurrent process for each block, and we call GuBlock run in that lambda. So I think that that's what will sort of make everything run. Or it says like libuv under node, sort of like that too. So we'll take a look at this in a second, a little bit more depth. Parallel T, I think that it's basically to say that we shouldn't block on waiting for this fiber to start running. We should just let it go and continue on with what we're doing. And then we're also spawning a separate fiber for click handling. So we're listening for click events from Sway, I think. And then there's an update channel that is probably being used to propagate those events to the individual GuBlocks so they can be handled. Start listening for updates from GuBlocks. So update listener is another procedure that listens on the channel for updates sent from any of the block fibers. So the blocks themselves have access to a channel that they can write messages to say that they need to be updated. When an update is received, output all GuBlock inner swaybar protocol blocks to standard out in JSON format. So this is the point where we sort of write out the information so that swaybar can take it and display it on the screen. Let's see. Get message ch, all blocks should be wrapped in an array per protocol spec. So yeah, this is where some of the stuff is being written out, which is kind of interesting to see. I think we're writing it out to standard output, and that's how, so whenever you have your own custom command for providing status to swaybar, swaybar will launch your program, and your program is supposed to write out information to standard out, which swaybar will then read from your standard out stream and then parse it to then put that into the bar display. And that's basically what Gubar is doing here. It is for each update that needs to refresh the view of the bar, it is writing out to standard out the contents of currently all the blocks, I believe. Now, the updates to those blocks can happen at any time, but when an update does happen, it refreshes the display of all the blocks. But those blocks, the text and the colors and everything else has already been cached. So all the information is cached and doesn't have to be recomputed every time. So that's why it can be relatively efficient. So yeah. Click listener listens on standard input for click events. So apparently swaybar is sending click events on standard input to the status command. So it parses the click event and finds the correct GuBlock to handle the event. So we're doing non-blocking IO for reading so that we don't block on the read. Excuse me. Click listener, and I think that actually is its own fiber. So click listener is its own fiber. Glenneth says blocks can also be persistent, no auto updates or time-based. Yeah, that's for sure. So this is just a recursive loop that goes on forever, it seems. And it reads a line from standard input. And if it's not the EOF object, then it tries to read the contents of the line. And then it tries to find the related goo block from the list of goo blocks. And if it finds one, I would say just use when for this and not unless equal. And then goo block handle click. So it calls a procedure to handle the click. Alternate Vest says, I think we need a monster. Yeah, I just drank a whole cup of green tea and it did nothing. So maybe we do need a monster. I already have one today though. Okay, so it handles the click, sends an event on the update channel. So I wonder if that's a bi-directional channel. We need to look at goo block handle click though, and that's probably defined somewhere else. Maybe in the goo block, let's see, handle. All right, goo block run. Do first run, do procedure, goo block update channel. Update channel, what are we doing with update channel? Put message. Yeah, I don't see it reading. It only puts messages on the update channel. When procedure, set goo block. Okay, it runs a procedure, gets the output block information, and sets the goo block. So that's that A list of information, okay? When it does that, it puts a message on the update channel, which is basically just true. I think it's just a trigger. It's a flag to say, hey, there's an update here. So on the other side, in Gubar.sem, they must be get message, calling get message here. That's the update listener. So the update listener is just looping and it's calling get message, which it doesn't block when it's waiting for a message. It sort of sleeps the fiber for update listener until a message comes in. And then once it does come in, we don't care what the message is. We just sort of throw it away. That's what you can tell from this underscore here. Then we write the format string out to standard output. So anytime any block sends a message, sends a true value over that channel, we're going to write out all the block information to standard out so that it can be read in by the sway bar and displayed on the screen. Okay, so it's fairly simple in terms of that. I think the design is good because it is simple. Okay, anything else interesting in the goo block file itself? Okay, so we got the define or sort of wrapping it to have a better creation or better constructor, let's say. Scheme to block. Let's look at the swaybar protocol here. So there's block to JSON, there's block to scheme, and there's scheme to block. What is block to scheme? Block. Does that procedure actually exist? It doesn't like it exists unless it's being imported from somewhere else. I don't think so. So there's block. Okay, so here's the actual protocol. Define JSON type header, and this is using the Guile JSON library. So if you need to use, you need to deal with JSON in Guile, there's a Guile JSON library, and it does give you the ability to define basically like record types that get translated directly into JSON to and from JSON. So in this case, we're defining a JSON type for the header, I guess, for some part of the block information. And then the JSON type for the block itself, alignment, background color, border bottom, border left, right top, the text color to use, the full text, the instance name for the block, the type of markup to use, minimum width of the block, the name of the block for click events, the bar separator, whether it should be drawn or not, the width of the separator, the short text if it needs to be shortened, and the urgent flag about whether whatever it is urgent. Okay, so it's basically a record type that's being defined for that, but that can easily be translated into JSON. There's also one for the click click event as well. The default block is scheme to block. So scheme to block, where is that defined? Oh, this must be auto-generated from define JSON type. I'm guessing that the define JSON type from block here. So define JSON type block, I'm guessing it automatically defines those block to JSON, block to scheme, and scheme to block procedures, because Guile JSON makes it possible for you to translate an A list and scheme into a JSON object, and we're kind of using the block type definition in a way to facilitate that translation in a way that gives us a little bit more control over it, I think. So these are being defined by the syntaxes of define JSON type. So that's why we don't see those defined in this file. It's something that's being defined automatically by define JSON type. So it's Metters H says, what is the project? This is a project called Gubar, which is a status command for swaybar. It's written in Guile Scheme. Yeah, and Oshraz is saying, you see the bar at the top of the screen where the CPU usage and stuff is. It's basically the program that provides that information to Sway. All right, so we got all that stuff in here. Some other stuff for processing information. Setter symbol generates setters. Ooh, we got some syntax rules in here. Whoa. What are we doing with that? Generate setters for header, block, click event. Generate make with keywords. Make with keywords. Oh, okay. Why, though? Do we need it? I'm curious about the syntax rules usage here. Okay, so syntax rules. It expects a record type. It pulls the record type fields. Record type name trimmed. Record type, is that defined here? Record type name trimmed? No. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. Eval define. This is kind of yeah, it's not syntax case, it's syntax rules, so you're able to do a little bit more of a kind of dynamic version of creating a syntax. I don't know if I've done anything with syntax rules before, but that's cool. So we can actually see kind of where some of this stuff is coming from. Generate make with keywords. And then generate setters. It's generating setter symbol, record type field, record modifier. Okay. So it's sort of just like taking over for. That must be what that set block name, set block instance, etc. Set block full text. That must be what that's from. Okay, that makes sense. So those procedures are being generated. So if you would go look for those, I don't see them in here though. Block full text, blah, blah, blah. Is it being defined public? Yeah, it's calling define public. So it's not automatic. It's not being added to the export list. It's being added automatically, let's say. Trev says it's because the JSON stuff generates the records and you can't add setters and stuff to it. Oh, okay, that does make sense. Wow, that's crazy. We just got like breaking news. Sprightly Goblin 0.15 is out. Goblins in the browser at last. We'll take a look at that in a second. Soham G says, I love chatting with a YouTube streamer over IRC from Emacs. And I'm reading your chat from IRC and Emacs. So, you know, it's in Emacs to Emacs kind of communication here. All right. So, cool. I mean, I think we've seen pretty much everything there is to see about the design of Gubar so far. I will say I like it. I think it's well done. It's extensible. It leverages the functionality of Scheme well. Leverages the functionality of Fibers well. You know, to the extent that it does. I think it does the right thing in how it operates. And I think this is a really good foundation for going even further with things that could be done with Gubar. So I think if folks want a cool scheme project to contribute to that has immediate value to you and might actually be used by some people, consider contributing to Gubar. Now, what I want to say about that first is I've shown you links to 2 different repositories so far. Okay, so there's Trev's original repository and there's glenneth's fork, which we've been using in this stream because glenneth has done a little bit of extra work on it. I think that ultimately we're going to move this into a system crafters organization, either on GitHub or Codeberg, to make this sort of like an official system crafters community project. Not my idea. Glenneth and Trev suggested we do it, and I think it'd be cool to do. So you might find that these repos have been moved at some point in the future. I don't know where they will end up. Keep an eye out on the repos. They'll probably have like a redirect notice or something if you are watching the stream recording later and you want to find where the repos are. But consider contributing to the projects because, like I said, it's a cool way to write some scheme code with some kind of non-trivial behavior. It's not just, you know, a normal console application. There's a few different things going on here. So it's pretty interesting. And I think there's a lot of improvements that have been laid out by Glenn in the docs folder. So if you go check out the configuration improvements markdown file, there's a lot of stuff in here that is being said. So like maybe there could be a more intuitive syntax for defining blocks, which would be kind of cool. Some others kind of helpers for configuration. There's a few markdown files here that are kind of interesting. Workspace features, error handling. There's a few different things that you might want to take a look at that would give you some ideas on how you can contribute. So alternate it says newsletter. Yeah, newsletter would be a way to do that. If I wrote newsletters, I should be doing that. Candidate, yes, it is a candidate for a newsletter. So yeah, consider contributing to this project. I think I'll probably end up using it because I've had a really simple sway bar configuration up until this point, just showing the date, but I would like to have some of this other information here, so why not use it? Another next step would be to submit this as a package to Guix so that it would be very easy to just install it with Guix and then set up in your profile. But I think there may be a few things that need to be done to it first before it's going to be smooth enough for anybody to just sort of go load it up. So maybe I'll chat with Trev and Glenn and see what their thoughts are on that at some point. But definitely check out the repositories that we've talked about so far and join the System Crafters IRC because Trev and Glenn and me obviously are there every day, as well as the rest of us who hang out there every day, and we'll probably be able to discuss things there as well. The docs folder inside the Gubar repo that Glenn created. I don't know if Trev's has that. Yeah, Trev's repo doesn't have the docs folder, but Glenn's repo does have it. So you can check that out there. So that's great. I'm excited about it. I think it's a great project, and I'm happy we got a chance to kind of go through it and even pretty much all the code, right? Through the course of the stream. I think we learned a few things. I mean, it's nice to see how some of these components come together. So before we get off the stream, I do want to take a look at that post about the Sprightly Goblins release, because that's big news. Let's go to the news link. All right, Sprightly Goblins 15 Goblins in the browser. Hot off the presses, literally just got published. Built and announced a long-awaited goal, Goblins in the browser. Look at my CPU usage spiking. Hey, that's nice. We get to see it in real time, how the block color changes whenever I start scrolling. All right, so Hoot can now be used to compile Goblins and Goblins using applications to WebAssembly. In fact, we even have support for our distributed programming protocol, OCAPN, working in the browser with Goblins on Hoot. So Goblins now compiles WebAssembly in Hoot from the same code base used to run Goblins in Guile's own virtual machine, which is kind of big news. It means that Hoot is far enough along that, you know, some seriously non-trivial stuff can be written for Hoot and also have just the same code for Guile itself. So same code running in both places. It's a major step forward towards getting the software in the hands of everyday users. Hope it unlocks a new wave of innovation about what secure collaboration can look like. I do have GPU-based rendering enabled, I think. It does seem a little bit weird, doesn't it? Also, a number of performance improvements makes this the release of fastest Goblins ever. I'm guessing that means on both sides, both on client and server. Let's see. They have a chat demo they've been using quite a long time ago. And what? Oh, okay. So we can actually have goblins working here. So if I'm Alice, I say hello. I press send. The message goes back into Bob here, and Bob says hello. He can't speak though. He can't type. So yeah, they go back and forth. That's cool. It's right here in the browser. Let's see if it explains what that means. The impressive thing about Goblin chat is that it's only about 150 lines of Goblins code to implement both the user code and the chat room code for a peer-to-peer chat program, which authenticates messages as they come in. So does that mean that we're going to get to have a System Crafters chat service that's based on Goblins now that we can write ourselves? Let's see. Source code for the running WebAssembly code executing above. Only the chat room and spawn user controller pair code are responsible for the chat protocol. The rest of the code is to provide a user interface. Cool enough, but we didn't say, did we say that Goblins works in a browser now? Would it be cool if you could try 2 Goblin chat programs communicating in your browser over OCAPN? Well, that's what it is. Let's see. It's the very same 150-line Goblin chat program shown in the previous GIF, but compiled to Hoot and running in the browser. They're being delivered through OCAPN, have a simplified abstract net layer which simulates a network which we're using. However, all the ordinary OCAPN protocol operations are occurring with each message transmitted from one user to the other. So what they're saying is that the only thing that is being simulated in this case is just the connection between the 2 endpoints. Everything else in terms of the actual object capability security model is actually in play here. So it's a real application. It's just that the communication is happening within, quote unquote, the same process. But if you switch out with a different net layer, it should also work the same way. So if you are using some other network transport, then the same code applies. And I think that's the point being made here. So if you've been paying close attention, you may have noticed that this release of Goblins, which was directly preceded by the Hoot 0.6 release. Hoot 0.6 had a large amount of work put into it, which is far beyond Goblins. Christine's in the chat and says it really is running the OCAP protocol. That's awesome. And these two releases were developed together, months of hard work, and proud to see it pay off. Goblins in a browser is possible at last, opening the door for a future where Sprightly's technology is in the hands of everyone. And it's important because, like I said earlier in the stream, Hoot now works on the sort of stable releases of Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit, which powers Safari on iOS and macOS. So on major mobile devices and on desktop machines with an up-to-date version of browser, stable version of browser, you can actually have a Guile Hoot-based program that uses Goblins today to start developing applications. So that's pretty exciting. People can actually start using this and building things with it. Moreover, the foreign function interface feature of Hoot allows developers to access any part of the enormous JavaScript ecosystem within a Goblins app. Yes, that means you can build full user interfaces and games and everything else using Hoot and then hook that up to Goblins, which is cool. So we are also releasing a new net layer specifically designed for browsers and everyday use, WebSockets. So WebSocket net layer is a glue between Goblins applications written for Guile and Hoot. It is currently the first net layer available for both and will allow communication between them. So basically meaning that WebSockets is the way to communicate from a Hoot application in the browser with a server running Guile at the moment. Having 2 different users across 2 different browsers talk to each other does require an intermediary. Thankfully, our prelay net layer works well together with the WebSockets net layer, allowing users across browser pages to talk to each other. So there is a relay that you can set up, probably a server somewhere, that allows you to relay connections between browsers. So that would allow you to do sort of like an online multiplayer type communication. And this is the prelay net layer, permit connections between 2 parties which cannot feasibly directly connect. So it's like a rendezvous point, effectively. Let's just put this into reader mode. I'm not going to pretend to understand what all this is. All right, primary limitation of the prelay net layer at present is that messages are delivered in clear text through the chosen relay, unauthenticated, which means the relay has the power to both snoop on and modify messages. A fully end-to-end encrypted relay net layer is on schedule to replace the current unencrypted, unauthenticated design. At present, the prelay net layer has characteristics similar to IRC, vanilla ActivityPub, and many multiplayer game systems, which also tend to rely on trusting a provider. We would like to and will do better in the future. Cool. It's a net layer which runs over another net layer by passing messages through an intermediate object, which itself speaks to other intermediate objects, routing to other likely isolated users. So it's basically its own network, bridging those users with the illusion of being direct peers. Cool. So then what else? It's the pre-relay net layer. The actual relay net layer we like to provide for a Goblins OCAPN should be properly end-to-end encrypted. Because prelay is not end-to-end encrypted, prelay providers can surveil and modify communication on the wire. But the thing is, like, that's only if you don't trust the prelay provider. If you are the one hosting it, I'm guessing that's okay, right? Like, you have a server that you're using to facilitate communication between two Hoot Goblins applications in browsers across the world. You have control over the system, so maybe it's okay. I don't know. It's a known concern. We're going to use the current implementation as a stepping stone to drive the correct and fully end-to-end encrypted relay net layer we have planned. Well, the important thing is that this gets people started writing applications that depend on a relay so that people get familiar with the idea of using relays and hosting or deploying relays. And then once the real relay implementation comes along, it's just a matter of swishing it out and dealing with whatever like configuration that needs to be done for an end-to-end encrypted relay. So necessary, totally necessary. I mean, obviously you need to have a way to relay between nodes that can't talk to each other because they're running in browsers. You know, you can't do that really easily. But for people like me who are interested in like hacking on applications to sort of try out some of these ideas is fully sufficient, I believe. This release of Goblins is a major speed up, 1.2 to 2x performance improvements for all Goblins code. Even more performance improvements are planned for upcoming releases. This is just the beginning. So super exciting stuff. Definitely consider, like I said before, supporting the Sprightly Institute by donating to the work that they're doing. They have a donation page that we looked at the last few weeks. It's sprightly.institute/donate. They've already reached their $80,000 goal, but they have another stretch goal of $120K. That they would like to get to really ensure that they have the resources they need to pay the good people who are working on all this really cool stuff, which, you know, they're friends of ours, and we want them to be able to continue like being able to, you know, eat and buy gasoline and keep the lights on at their houses. So let's support them so that they can do that. Let's see, getting the release. If you pull Guix, the latest Guix, you should be able to get Guile Goblins, and you can upgrade that to 0.15. So it's available right now. And Christine says, if you found bugs, report them, please, and mention what browser you're on. And she's pointing to the Sprightly Institute GitLab. GitLab.com/Sprightly Institute. Is that a oh, okay. This is specifically for the website, I think. Sprightly website /issues. I love GitLab's URLs. They're so cute. Anyway. Okay. So that was a stream. I think it's cool that we got to talk about Goblins right at the very end there. So, you know, exciting. So I hope that you are interested today in checking out Gubar. If you are using Sway and you like writing Guile Scheme code and maybe you want to contribute to a Guile Scheme project, as you saw in the stream, it's quite easy to get up and running with it and to configure it and to just, you know, experiment with the things that it provides. I think it would also be quite easy for you to add new configuration blocks that do whatever you want them to do and potentially contribute those to the project, or maybe just have them in your own local code or your own fork of the project if you want to. And also, obviously, the latest updates of Guile Hoot and Sprightly Goblins that we talked about. Super exciting. I'm really curious about trying to use some of this stuff potentially for upcoming game jams. I'm guessing there will be a spring Lisp game jam at some point soon. So maybe we'll give that a shot. Maybe we can write like a mud or something, you know? Cool little mud where people can go and play together. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, as always, I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for your time and attention. And let me know what you think in the comments and also on the System Crafters forum. And until next time, happy hacking. See ya.